To move millions of barrels of crude oil across the ocean, you need vessels of staggering physical size. But keeping those massive ships moving requires passing through some of the most dangerous maritime geography on Earth. This map shows the Strait of Hormuz. It is the primary artery connecting the oil producers of the Persian Gulf to the rest of the world. Roughly 20% of all global oil and gas exports must flow through this specific 21-mile gap. Before the current conflict escalated, the waterway handled a massive volume of traffic, averaging 138 commercial ships passing through every single day. That normal flow briefly resumed last month under a 60-day memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran. The temporary ceasefire lifted military blockades and allowed 74 million barrels of Iranian oil to be exported onto the global market. The entire global energy market stability rests squarely on the unimpeded traffic passing through this single geographic bottleneck. But the brief window of peace shattered following missile strikes on a Saudi oil tanker and a Qatari LNG carrier. The U.S. retaliated immediately. Washington revoked the temporary sanctions waivers that allowed Iran to sell its oil, halting the diplomatic agreement in its tracks. This line chart illustrates the immediate logistical paralysis that followed. Daily ship traffic dropped from a pre-conflict average of 138 vessels, plummeting to just 11. The human toll escalated just as quickly. Citing severe safety risks, the Indian government issued a mandate barring its 300,000 global seafarers from operating any vessels transiting the strait. When diplomatic agreements collapse here, one of the world's most critical shipping lanes is instantly paralyzed, trapping global trade in the crossfire. This map shows the standoff across two competing shipping lanes, a U.S.-backed southern route and an Iranian northern route. Iran forces commercial ships north, demanding illegal $2 million tolls. In response, a U.S. naval blockade restricts movement from the north, cutting off Tehran's shadow fleet. That enforcement is active and aggressive. When the oil tanker Belma ignored warnings to change course, an American aircraft disabled the vessel by firing a Hellfire missile directly into its smokestack. This satellite view shows the Belma's intended destination, Karg Island, which serves as Iran's massive oil export terminal. The inescapable geographic constraints of the strait turned standard naval patrols into a high-stakes bottleneck. Massive cargo ships have zero physical room to evade confrontation. Years of blockades and sanctions have caused $144 billion in economic damage to Iran, forcing its currency, the rial, to collapse to record lows. Unable to fund or field a military capable of fighting a conventional naval war, Tehran heavily relies on asymmetric tactics. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps deploys swarms of drones and fast attack boats to harass and threaten the massive, slow-moving cargo vessels navigating the strait. Finding the truth in this crossfire is difficult. The U.S. claims precision strikes on 90 radar systems, but Iranian authorities claim those exact same strikes hit civilian infrastructure, forcing the emergency evacuation of a hospital. In retaliation, Iran expanded its target list, launching direct missile strikes on U.S. military installations across Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. By utilizing cheap, highly mobile weapons to disrupt commercial shipping, Iran effectively neutralizes traditional U.S. naval dominance without requiring a massive fleet of its own. This line graph illustrates the immediate global economic fallout. As the physical blockade intensified, crude oil spiked to $85 a barrel. Analysts project if the disruption becomes permanent, prices could climb as high as $100 a barrel. At the negotiating table, progress has frozen entirely. U.S. officials have declared the temporary ceasefire agreement over, while Tehran publicly refuses to fold to military pressure. Inside the United States, that gridlock is causing severe domestic political friction over whether to continue launching military strikes or attempt to force renewed diplomatic negotiations. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has explicitly accused members of the Israeli government of manipulating American public opinion, arguing they are running a well-funded campaign to prolong the conflict and derail future deals. Outside the strait, the threat is actively expanding. Iranian allied proxies in Yemen, like the Houthis, are threatening to broaden the conflict by directly targeting Saudi energy facilities if the U.S. targets Iranian infrastructure. The stark logistical reality is that forcing the Strait of Hormuz open permanently by military force would require thousands of ground troops, a massive regional escalation neither side currently seems prepared to execute. Until a new diplomatic baseline is established, the entirety of global energy security remains at the absolute mercy of whoever physically controls this 21-mile stretch of water.
Meet Clara Narratio, curious audio for a noisy world. Start your day with the Daily World Brief. Make sense of markets with financial candy. And follow Brain Candy for strange ideas, history, culture, technology, and the questions that make learning stick. You'll also find classic audiobooks, plus book candy companions that bring great books into sharper focus. Follow Clara Narratio on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Better yet, visit claranarratio.com. claranarratio.com. Curious audio, no fluff.
Last year, Donald Trump generated at least $1.4 billion in income, specifically from his cryptocurrency businesses. For over a century, the benchmark for presidential corruption in America was the Teapot Dome affair, where Warren G. Harding's Interior Secretary took what would equal $6 million today in bribes. A sitting president earning over $1 billion in a single year from a private enterprise completely dwarfs that historical standard by a factor of over 200. The engine generating the majority of this new wealth is a decentralized finance project called World Liberty Financial, or WLFI, founded by the Trump family. This chart maps the internal architecture of World Liberty Financial. If you trace the profits generated from the sale of its digital tokens, you find a highly specific mechanism. 75% of all incoming capital bypasses typical reinvestment protocols and routes directly into the Trump family trust. Stripped of its ComArx digital branding, this venture operates as a highly efficient private revenue stream, funneling capital directly to a sitting president's family. Looking at this chart early on, the system almost collapsed. At launch, traditional investors stayed away. The founders lacked the necessary capital to activate the token payouts and quickly slashed their fundraising target from $300 million down to just $30 million. The project needed a massive injection of cash to survive. That capital came from a Chinese tech billionaire named Justin Sun. Sun built his fortune by founding the Tron blockchain network. He is a highly visible, maverick figure in the crypto space, known for bending rules and pushing regulatory boundaries to maximize his platform's reach. With traditional finance sidelined, the survival of the president's most lucrative personal business now relied entirely on the financial intervention of a single foreign billionaire. This map tracks Sun's capital. He injected $75 million directly into WLFI, then poured over $100 million into the closely tied Trump meme coin. This buy-in sparked a frenzy of retail investment, pushing total token sales to $550 million. At the exact moment Sun executed this massive financial rescue, he was facing a federal lawsuit from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The agency accused him of running fake trades and pocketing millions from unregistered sales. The financial lifeline for the president's business was now tied directly to a man pursued for fraud by the president's own federal regulators. This timeline plots the legal sequence. Shortly after the election, Sun executes his $75 million investment. Next, under a new administration, the SEC and Sun file to pause his federal fraud case. Finally, the SEC dismisses the charges with prejudice. Both Donald Trump's representatives and Justin Sun fiercely deny any connection between these events. Sun's camp states that linking his crypto purchases to the SEC's decision is entirely baseless. Even without proven direct causation, the mathematical alignment is absolute. A massive private bailout was followed immediately by federal legal relief, generating intense political scrutiny. The financial alliance between Sun and the Trump family quickly collapsed over the very mechanics of the crypto token. WLFI marketed itself as a decentralized system, but its underlying computer code contained a backdoor granting anonymous administrators total control over any user's wallet. The administrators activated that hidden backdoor. They completely froze Justin Sun's tokens, blocking him from moving his assets, while simultaneously unlocking 20% of the total token supply for market sale. The massive token unlock was highly lucrative for the founders, generating an estimated $5 billion for the Trunk family. Meanwhile, Sun's frozen position crashed in value, resulting in an estimated $60 million loss. The freeze exposed the reality of the venture's architecture. Ultimate authority and capital control never belonged to the investors. It remained securely in the hands of the project's founders. The dispute is now playing out in federal court. Sun is suing WLFI in California, accusing the platform operators of using an illegal backdoor to blacklist his account and treat him like a personal ATM. WLFI responded by countersuing Sun in Florida. They accuse the billionaire of defamation and of attempting to maliciously short the company's value. Beyond the technical lawsuits in frozen wallets, the mechanics of this relationship remain intact. A sitting president accepted hundreds of millions of dollars from a foreign investor who was actively navigating enforcement by federal agencies. This finalized architecture offers a clear blueprint for the future, a proven framework where private family profit and federal regulatory power intersect on a multi-billion-dollar scale. As Ukraine heads into its fourth winter of full-scale war, the country is facing a brutal reality. Russian strikes continue to hammer the electrical grid, making the survival of the nation's energy infrastructure an immediate existential priority. To manage that threat, President Volodymyr Zelensky initiated a sweeping government overhaul. Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko stepped down, and Zelensky quickly nominated Sergei Koretsky to take her place. Looking at this snow-covered power plant, the logic behind Koretsky's appointment is clear. He is the chair of the state energy company, Naftogaz. Bringing him in as prime minister is a defensive economic maneuver designed specifically to keep the heat and lights on during the freezing months ahead. Securing the grid was a practical, uncontroversial move. But at the exact same time, Zelensky initiated a military shakeup that would trigger a rare, massive domestic crisis. This is Mikhailo Fedorov. After only 6 months in the position, Zelensky abruptly dismissed him as defense minister. During his short tenure, Fedorov built massive public support. He aggressively slashed old Soviet-era bureaucracy and implemented a highly effective, data-driven strategy on the battlefield, largely by pioneering Ukraine's army of drones. His sudden firing sent a shockwave through the capital. Hundreds of young Ukrainians flooded the streets of Kyiv, holding signs that read, "Hands off Fedorov," and chanting against the sabotage of their military victory. Zelensky relies heavily on public cohesion to sustain the war effort. So why would a wartime president risk his own political capital to fire a highly successful military reformer? This diagram maps out the crisis's root cause, a systemic dispute between Fedorov's civilian defense ministry and the traditional general staff. Fedorov claims this relationship broke down, accusing military brass of blocking his tech initiatives and refusing fast, asymmetric warfare tactics needed to exhaust Russia, and he named names. Fedorov directed his frustrations at this man, Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky. In a devastating public critique, Fedorov claimed that instead of figuring out how to defeat Russia, Syrsky's rigid approach was splitting the country. Pictured here, President Zelensky was forced into a corner. He had to choose between his trusted battlefield commander and his most popular civilian innovator. In a grinding war of attrition, Zelensky did the math. A lack of rapid tech innovation is a problem, but a fractured chain of command is a fatal liability. He sided decisively with General Syrsky. That decision left a glaring hole at the top of the defense ministry. Ukraine immediately needed a leader capable of bridging the severe gap between Silicon Valley-style innovation and strict military hierarchy. Zelensky's official pick for the job is Yevgeny Khmada. As the acting head of Ukraine's security service, the SBU, Khmada brings a highly specific resume. He successfully directed the intelligence agency's long-range drone strikes deep into Russian territory and personally managed complex, high-stakes technological combat operations. Khmada solves the president's dilemma. He retains Fedorov's intense focus on drones and modern hardware, but he is fundamentally an intelligence officer. He operates within a strict, disciplined framework that Syrsky and the traditional military establishment respect. His appointment is a highly calculated maneuver. It allows Ukraine to maintain its crucial asymmetric warfare capabilities without challenging the supreme authority of the General Staff. Still, the transition has not been smooth. The anger over Fedorov's ouster extended far beyond the civilian protests in Kyiv, reaching deep into the front lines. This timeline tracks the immediate fallout. Following civilian demonstrations, high-profile military figures like drone commander Pavlo Yelizarov resigned in protest. The crisis threatened to spiral, but Fedorov intervened. He publicly backed down, stating he trusts the president and won't antagonize military command. That measured response kept the political temperature simmering, but contained the immediate threat of institutional collapse. Ukraine now operates under a stark new strategic reality. The entire government has been reshuffled to prioritize two things: grid survival for the winter and absolute unity in the chain of command, even if it means sacrificing popular reform. The faces on this memory wall of fallen defenders in Kyiv show the ultimate stakes of these decisions. President Zelensky is betting that a unified traditional command structure is the only way to win this brutal war. But the fierce protests prove that his public mandate for making those choices has its limits.
Meet Clara Narratio, curious audio for a noisy world. Start your day with the Daily World Brief. Make sense of markets with financial candy. And follow Brain Candy for strange ideas, history, culture, technology, and the questions that make learning stick. You'll also find classic audiobooks, plus book candy companions that bring great books into sharper focus. Follow Clara Narratio on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Better yet, visit claranarratio.com. claranarratio.com. Curious audio, no fluff.
The global technology sector is currently defined by a period of massive financial success, with several major firms reaching valuations that were recently thought to be impossible. This chart tracks Alphabet's market capitalization over the last 6 years. The company's total value has quadrupled in that window, pushing its valuation to $4 trillion. But inside the company's California headquarters, that growth has not translated into a sense of stability for the employees. Over 4,500 workers recently signed a petition calling for guaranteed severance and protections against mandatory layoffs as the company continues to cut staff. The Alphabet Workers Union delivered that petition directly to the office of CEO Sundar Pichai, calling it the largest piece of employee feedback on job security in the company's history. The contrast suggests that while tech companies are generating record-breaking wealth, the workforce is simultaneously facing a period of high professional risk. These concerns are not isolated to Google. Across Silicon Valley, the largest players in the industry are thinning their ranks. In many cases, these layoffs are a deliberate choice to reallocate capital, moving funds away from traditional roles to pay for massive new investments in artificial intelligence. This chart shows the scale of recent workforce reductions. Oracle has eliminated roughly 21,000 employees over the last year, suggesting AI adoption may continue driving cuts. Meta also reduced its workforce by 8,000 people, prompting lawsuits from workers alleging AI tools targeted them. Block also cut 4,000 jobs, nearly half its staff. CEO Jack Dorsey attributed the move to efficiency gains made possible by AI. These layoffs represent a real-time financial restructuring of the human workforce to fund a transition into the next technological cycle. For the workers who remain, the corporate focus on AI is changing the requirements of their daily jobs. While companies like Google are cutting general management positions, they are simultaneously increasing spending on specialized AI hiring and marketing. Dan Friedman is a software engineer at Google who has watched this shift firsthand. Friedman's job actually involves building AI tools for designers, but even he has expressed concern that he isn't using AI enough in his own workflows to satisfy new performance expectations. He has described a constant anxiety that the technology he is helping to build will eventually make his own position redundant. Friedman is one of thousands of engineers who signed the union petition, signaling a shared concern that even the people creating this technology are not shielded from its impact on job security. This labor crisis is part of a larger economic pattern driven by technological transition. Nobel laureate Philippe Anqueron describes this as creative destruction, a process where innovation destroys existing jobs while simultaneously creating new ones. This historic cycle has occurred before, most notably during the IT revolution, when the adoption of the personal computer and the internet forced a massive shift in the global labor market. However, the current cycle is concentrating financial rewards into a very specific area. As this visualization shows, capital is flowing away from the broader tech workforce and into a highly concentrated pool of AI specialization. For now, the everyday workforce is bearing the immediate costs of this transition, facing layoffs and increased performance pressure, while the long-term benefits of the AI boom remain unclear. As the industry moves forward, the question remains, will the productivity gains from AI be shared across the workforce, or will the wealth continue to concentrate among a shrinking group of specialized experts and investors?